All right, let's get right into it. We're surrounded by plants every single day, right? But have you ever actually stopped and wondered, how do they eat? I mean, they don't have mouths, so how on earth do they make their own food? Well, that's the giant question we're going to unpack today.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit like science fiction, doesn't it? Eating sunlight. Think about it. A plant just sits there, basking in the sun, and somehow turns that light into a full-on meal. It's like a secret superpower that's happening constantly, right under our noses. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain and see exactly how it works.
So, to really get to the bottom of this, we kind of have to change the way we look at plants. You know, they're not just passive green decorations for our world. No, they are actually some of the most powerful and efficient engines on the entire planet.
And that secret power, it has a name you've probably heard before: photosynthesis. Now I know, it sounds like some big, scary word from a biology textbook, but the idea behind it is actually incredibly simple. It's just the process plants use to take three basic things from around them: sunlight, water, and air, and basically cook them into their own high-energy food. And this is really the key idea we're going to run with here. Just picture every plant out there, from a massive redwood tree down to a tiny little blade of grass, as a perfect miniature factory. I'm talking about a self-sufficient factory that runs entirely on solar power, creates basically zero waste, and, oh yeah, it produces the product that powers almost all life on this planet.
Okay, so if it's a factory, it needs raw materials, right? A recipe, if you will. So what's on the menu for our little green factory? Well, it turns out the recipe for photosynthesis is super simple, using just 3 key ingredients from the environment.
First up, you've got to have power. And for plants, all that energy comes from one place: the sun. Sunlight is literally the electricity that keeps the whole factory running. No sun, the assembly line grinds to a complete halt. Simple as that. Next on the list is water. A plant's roots are like this incredibly intricate plumbing system, constantly sucking up water from the soil and sending it all the way up to the leaves. And this isn't just to keep the plant from getting thirsty. This water is a crucial raw material that's actually going to get broken apart in the process.
And the final ingredient is, well, it's all around us. It's carbon dioxide. You know, the very same stuff we breathe out. Plants basically breathe this gas in through these tiny little holes in their leaves, and it gives them the carbon atoms they need, the absolute fundamental building blocks for making their food.
All right, recipe check. We've got our power source, sunlight. We've got our fuel, water. And we've got our building blocks, carbon dioxide. Now, it's time to go inside the factory and see the assembly line in action. So the main factory floor, that's the leaf. But if you zoom way in, inside the leaf cells, that's where you find the real machinery. They're these tiny, microscopic green things called chloroplasts. And honestly, the best way to think of them is as super advanced, living solar panels. They're the real heart of the whole operation.
The whole process these little machines run is incredibly efficient, and you can really break it down into 3 simple steps. Step 1, the chloroplasts grab the energy from sunlight. Step 2, they use that insane solar power to literally rip water molecules apart. And finally, step 3, they take the carbon dioxide from the air and mash it together with the pieces of the broken water molecules to create sugar. And that sugar, that's the plant's food.
Okay, this brings us to a really cool question. One you've probably asked yourself at some point. If plants are so obsessed with soaking up sunlight for energy, then why are they green?
It feels totally backwards, doesn't it? I mean, you'd think that for maximum efficiency, a plant would want to soak up every last drop of light, every single color. So why on earth would it reject the green part? It seems like a waste. Well, the answer is all about how those tiny solar panels actually work.
The secret ingredient here is a pigment called chlorophyll. That's the stuff inside the chloroplasts that actually makes them green. And chlorophyll is an absolute superstar at absorbing energy from red and blue light. But it's just not very good at grabbing the green light. For some pretty complex evolutionary reasons, it just can't use it.
So what happens to all that green light it can't use? It just gets reflected. It literally bounces right off the leaf and into our eyes. And that's the mind-blowing secret. The color green, the color we associate with nature and life, is actually the light that the plant rejects. It's their waste product.
Okay, so we've seen how the factory works. Pretty cool stuff. But now we need to zoom way out, because this whole process is so much bigger than just a plant making a little snack for itself. This single, tiny chemical reaction is, and this is no exaggeration, the life support system for our entire planet. This quote really says it all.
Photosynthesis isn't just plants feeding themselves, it's about them feeding everything. That simple sugar they create in their leaves, that's the bottom of the food chain. It's the foundational energy source that everything else, from a tiny insect to a blue whale, ultimately depends on.
So let's just boil it down to the two most critical things our little plant factory produces. First, there's the food, the fuel for pretty much all life on Earth. And second, remember when it split those water molecules? Well, the waste from that process is oxygen, the very oxygen that fills our atmosphere and that you and I are breathing right now in this very moment.
And get this isn't some new technology. Nature has been working on this, has been refining and perfecting this amazing solar power system for billions of years. It is, without a doubt, the oldest, most reliable, and most successful energy system on the face of the Earth.
Which really leaves us with a pretty big thought to end on. When you look at a simple leaf, you're not just looking at a piece of a plant anymore. You're looking at a blueprint for perfect, clean, completely sustainable energy. It really makes you wonder, right? If plants figured out perfect solar power billions of years ago, what else can they teach us? What other incredible secrets are just hiding there in plain sight, waiting for us to finally pay attention?